Welcome back to MT Treasures. Today what we're going to do is the grandkids found this ore in an old mill. It was on the floor where they were processing ore. They saw the gold highlights in it because of the pyrite, and they thought they'd actually found gold. So they loaded up 2 big old buckets of this. I probably have about 120 pounds of this particular ore. Well, the facts are that some pyrites do in fact have precious metals in them. And since this one was found in a processing plant all over the floor, appears they were missing the washer. The grandkids picked it up and loaded it up, and so what we are going to do is we are going to find out whether or not the grandkids actually found gold. So what I did is I took a few pounds of this ore, and what I did is I crushed it with my Cobra rock crusher. And then what we did is I dumped it into my pan here. And what we are getting ready to do is we are going to go ahead and we are going to roast this ore. The reason we are roasting it is a twofold purpose. One is to get the sulfides and the pyrite to break open and release any ore they may contain or precious metals. And secondly, to turn the sulfides into oxides, which will help keep the material from matting during the smelting process and collecting up precious ores. After we were done here roasting it, when it cools, we will take it over to the Sloosh and we will run it through the Sloosh and clean it up, collect up the concentrates, smelt it down, and see if we actually did find any gold. So stay tuned. Okay, I am through roasting the ore, and as you can see, it has turned a rust color. That's what happens when you roast it. The ores here tend to turn a little rust color. It's been my experience, ores from rivers, you deal with black sands. When you're dealing with ore out of the ground, you're dealing with sulfides, and you're dealing with pyrites. So roasting ores found underground for me has been a pretty good idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this in, and we're going to go when it cools down, and I'm going to throw it into some containers. We're going to weigh it out and see exactly how much ore we have to run through our Sloosh. Okay, this is the roasted pyrite ore that we roasted. We're actually going to weigh it, and we're going to see how much this particular pyrite weighs. Take 2. Here is our pyrite ore that we roasted, and we put it into a container. And what we're actually going to do is we're actually going to move it down to the scale here now that we've put some batteries back in it, and we're going to weigh our ore and see approximately how much of this pyrite ore we have collected. And it worked a second ago. All right, there we go. Lordy, I really need to buy a better scale. Okay, the scale in there, after beating on it and playing with it, says this is about 3 pounds of ore. We are going to go over here, and this is our Sloosh, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn it on. Let the water start running through it. Okay. And be caught up within the matting here. And within this, we have miner's moss on top of a fine blue mat underneath. to catch the precious ores. So what we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and sloosh this ore, and hopefully we should collect between 80 and 90% of the ore. Okay, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to add a little ore to this, and as you can see, the water collects up the ore and rinses away the lighter material down the chute. All right, and we will continue this till all the ore is gone and caught up in the matting. You don't want to have to watch all that, so we'll go ahead and get back to it once we've got it concentrated into the mats. Okay, now what we are going to do is we are going to use these wing nuts here to undo these two screens and rinse everything off in this bucket. It has soap in it. And then what we will do is I will take a brush, turn on the water, and brush down the sloosh into the bucket as well. And we'll see what we have collected. Show you when we're done. Okay guys, we're back to this pyrite. We ran 3 pounds of ore through the sloosh, and we ended up with 320 grams of concentrate. So now what I'm going to do, after I've allowed it to dry out overnight, because you really don't want to throw wet material into a kiln at 2,000 degrees. What we're going to do is we're actually going to add some flux. This flux is from Legends and Sparks, and it's a fire assay flux for hard to smelt ores. I love this stuff. I've never gotten any matting with it, and what I mean by matting is what happens is not like all the material really doesn't smelt into a glass or melt down into a glass, and you end up with like a bed of material above the lead prill that isn't black glass. It looks like raw material, and that raw material may hold silver or gold in it. So you really don't want matting. This is something you really want to try to avoid. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 600 grams of flux. It's 2 to 1. I'm doing 2 to 1. It's 320, I know, but I'm only going to go with, 600 grams of flux. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 50% multein borax. And that is so that it makes the material, once it's melted into lava, much easier to pour into the cone mold. Cool, and I can get my little lead prill out. What I will also do is I will add 30 grams of lead to this. The lead is a collector metal. What it will do is it will melt down at a much lower temperature. And it will basically travel through the fluid and attract all the precious metals. And then as it starts to cool, it's heavy, and so are the precious metals, so everything drops to the tip of the cone mold. And as it cools, you'll end up with a little lead prill with all the precious metals in it. And that little lead prill will then be taken, and a little hammer will be used on it to knock all the glass and off of it. And then it will be taken over and it will be cupelled. The bone ash cupel, when the lead oxidizes with the air and the heat, will be sucked into that bone cupel, and what will be left, if there is any precious metal in it, is a little pearl of gold or silver. So this is basically what we're looking for, and the reason I'm kind of laying everything out is because Teresa got a lot of questions. Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Well, what's the purpose of doing this? So it's kind of a 101 for those who really don't know what we do, and it's also a guide to watching materials being smelted for those that know what they're doing. I mean, the 101 thing is cool, but they already know it. So, but this is for those of you that don't. So stay tuned, and I'm going to mix up all this flux, and we're going to smelt this and see what we get out of this material. See if the grandkids really did find some gold. Okay, so we're getting ready to smelt this pyrite ore. I've gone ahead and added the fluxes and everything to it, so we're going to stick it to the smelter, melt it down, and pour it into that cone mold there on the right, and see what type of lead pearl we get out of it and if there's any values in it. I've never had an ore smoke like this before. Wow. Well, as you see, we actually did get a nice little pearl of gold out of that pyrite. So what we're now going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull it and see how much it weighs. So it appears we got 0.06 grams of gold out of that material. It occurs to me I got that much gold just roasting it, crushing it, roasting it, and just cupelling it. So I think running it through the sloosh isn't increasing the amount of precious materials. So I think with this material, I'm just going to go ahead, crush, and go ahead and smelt it and collect the ore. Alright, if you like what you're seeing, go ahead and smash that like and subscribe button, and let us know what else you would like to see. Currently we're going through ores from the early 1400s, 1800s, and mines, things of that nature. If you want to see something else, please let us know. Okay, after doing the cupelling and weighing out the ore, it turns out that on the pyrite, we are going to get approximately 40 grams of gold per ton of ore, which is a little over an ounce per ton. So we will probably hang on to the ore and continue to process it, since I seem to get more ore out of it when I simply crush, roast, and smelt it.